This is Backstory, the podcast powered by the newsroom of the Ithaca Voice. I'm Jimmy Jordan. It's Tuesday, May 12th. 2 years ago, voters in the Ithaca City School District rejected a proposal for a sweeping school district renovation project, and by a staggering margin. Meanwhile, the issues have continued to pile up. Leaky roofs, overheated classrooms, science labs that are no longer fully usable due to safety issues. But now, in exactly 1 week, that project goes back in front of voters again, at a third of its original size. This week on Backstory, the plan to fix Ithaca's ailing school buildings, plus a look ahead at the other things at stake for this year's school district elections. That's after a short break. Stay with us.
The Ithaca Voice is nonprofit, nonpartisan, and community-based. If you value local news, help fuel it with a contribution at ithacavoice.org.
You're listening to Backstory. I'm Jimmy Jordan. Next Tuesday, school districts across the state will hold their annual elections. Every year, voters get a chance to elect new school board members. They'll weigh in on the district's annual operating budget, but some years, there's more at stake. My colleague Megan Zerez covers education here at the Ithaca Voice. Megan, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Good. Hanging and slanging?
As always, my friend, as always.
Every school district has a school board election every year, but this year it's a little different at the Ithaca City School District. What's going on?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that, but I would say the biggest one is the capital project votes. Maybe not the one that's the most talked about, but it is very unique for this year. That's where school districts, again, go to voters. They ask for permission to borrow money up to a certain limit to fund their big projects. That's like renovations, construction, like big repairs to their buildings. And these do not happen every year. You can think of the capital project as a large purchase, like a mortgage or a car loan. It's separate from the operating budget, which is, the budget they pass every year to pay teachers, to buy school supplies, to pay the bills. This is separate. The last time Ithaca's City School District passed their capital project vote, that was in 2019. But, even though that happened 7 years ago, these projects, because they're construction projects and they happen in waves, they sort of impact the school for decades to come, And this year's really interesting because the state of these buildings has really percolated into a lot of different conversations that the school district is having, that have kind of nothing to do with buildings.
Interesting. Sounds complicated. Let's break down what's in the capital project. Why don't you start with the buildings?
Some of it is wear and tear, right? Something really common to do is asbestos abatement. These school buildings are really old. A lot of them have asbestos in it. So some of it's just like, okay, taking some of that stuff out. There's also leaky roofs. There's issues with the HVAC, the heating and cooling system with some of these schools. The science classrooms in, the middle schools are super old, original to those buildings. So, from the 1970s, there's no gas safety shutoff in those science classrooms. So if a science teacher wanted to teach a lesson with a Bunsen burner, they couldn't do that because the gas is too dangerous to use. So, and we love to have middle schoolers and just leaky gas everywhere. It's great. It's a totally perfect recipe for success. But yeah, there's other stuff too, renovating bathrooms, revamping the school's nurse's office. And, a lot of these items, this laundry list of items that they're wanting to fix, there's kind of like this coordination sometimes between that item that they're trying to fix and just a larger conversation that they're having. For instance, when we talk about the heating and cooling issues, that came up with the teachers union contract negotiation. This was one of the things that the teachers kept on pointing to in the summer when it's already hot. Sometimes the heating system would go on and these classrooms would get 80, sometimes 90 degrees in the summer. And in the winter, when it's, already cold, sometimes the AC would kick on. But anyway, all of these things are just, what they determined is really the most urgent and also kind of, I think, a little bit more of what's the most doable considering the budget constraints.
Gotcha. Yeah, it sounds like a long list of projects that have been, deferred that they want to get to.
Yeah.
So while this capital plan is being discussed, there's also the possibility that the district could look really different in the coming years. And so I'm referring to this study that came out last fall that suggested the district may need to close one or more of its 8 elementary schools. Keeping them open costs money, and there are fewer kids every year in the district. So the thinking is they might need less schools. Is that scenario a school closing for good? Is that a factor in these ongoing discussions with the capital project?
I mean, openly, not really. I think they don't want to freak people out. People get very emotional when you hear, your neighborhood school might be closing. And they've emphasized that, it's a multi-year process. There's going to be community conversations. They're nowhere near having that, final discussion yet. But as you can imagine, if you have a school that needs a new roof, but maybe you plan to close down that school in the next 5 years, would you really want to spend $5 million buying a new roof for Beverly J. Martin Elementary School downtown, for instance, if you're going to close Beverly J. Martin, in the next 5-10 years or whatever? It's sort of that calculation. Those conversations, again, haven't really been happening in the open, but that's, not the only long-term planning item that's impacting what goes into this capital project. I mentioned the heating and cooling systems. That kind of ties into the teachers union negotiations that were sort of really playing out last summer. You also obviously have rising energy costs. Everyone knows that.
Right.
Like regardless of your school or
Going right through the roof.
Absolutely. And, if you have a heating system that is needlessly heating your school in the summer, that's not exactly the most economical way to spend your heating bill. There's also sort of this issue on reliance on Cornell University. For the longest time, Boynton Middle School and Ithaca High School get some of their cooling capacity, like AC capacity, from the Cornell's Lake Source cooling plant, which is just up East Shore Drive.
Yeah, pretty cool, but
the costs of those cooling services, they're going up. So they're installing a geothermal heat pump system so that they can be a little bit more independent from Cornell without having to, burn fossil fuels. Another big thing is the state has a mandate that all school districts by, I think it's 2037, need to have their entire fleet of school buses be electric. And it's a little bit different from just charging your sedan. You have to have this really super powered charger, and that means you have to have a lot more electrical capacity, which the district doesn't currently have right now. So some of the improvements are to make that easier. But again, a lot of these projects, they kind of tie into some of these, bigger conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long list of things that could add to a bigger bill for the school district, motivating these discussions around these buildings,
right. And
whether they should keep them open or not.
Yeah. If you put these projects off, sometimes that also increases the bill, right? So they're having to look at a lot of different costs that are in the short term and the midterm and in the long term.
So the last time ICSD had a capital project that passed was 7 years ago, right? It's up to voters whether they're going to approve this capital project. But the last time one appeared on a ballot was in 2024. So what happened there, Megan?
Yeah. So, like you alluded to in the introduction, and then here, 2 years ago, they had a capital project that went up, and that failed spectacularly. That capital project was a much bigger ask. It was $120 million. This one is a little under $44 million. So it's roughly a third of the size of this original proposal from 2 years ago. I think a lot of voters rejected that capital project 2 years ago because of other things that were on the ballot. And I'm talking, of course, about the increase to the district's yearly operating budget. That was a really big ask. That was what drove a lot of people out to the polls. And, when I was speaking to voters 2 years ago, just coming out of the polls, people who were voting against that operating budget, which again is just the yearly teacher salaries, school supplies, like fuel costs. They saw these two spending items and they said, I don't like the first one and I don't really like the second one either. So this one, the capital project that failed 2 years ago, kind of felt like collateral damage in this big repudiation of what, was happening with the overall budget.
How big is the ask this time?
Right. So again, it is like a little under $44 million. That is, again, a third of the original ask. And the other thing is, the scope of this project is much smaller. Part of the reason why 2 years ago that capital project was so much bigger is they were doing a lot more stuff. One of the big things that they initially proposed 2 years ago, but it is not in this project, is to build a brand new school bus garage. That's not happening anymore. So that's gone. They really pared down that proposal to get to this much smaller version.
Did that 2-year delay make matters worse at all?
Yeah, I mean, some people would say that. It is also just really hard to say. The other thing to note is that just because a capital project is passed by voters in a particular year, it doesn't mean that the construction is going to start as soon as polls close. These projects go out to bid and they happen staggered. They happen over a period of time. In fact, there are projects that were funded in the 2019 capital project, so 7 years ago, that are still ongoing today. So these projects that if people vote to approve the capital project here in 2026, those projects might not even be done, 5, 7, 10 years down the line. They might still be working on those. And what the district is arguing is the longer you wait, the worse the problem gets, the more expensive it is to fix it. And, we know that inflation is kind of an accepted fact of life here. Mm-hmm. And, they are sort of arguing the longer you wait, the more you're going to end up paying. The other thing that's important to note is that some of these costs are reimbursable by the state. For this school district, it's about 58%. So, even though the spending limit is $44 million, when it all sort of shakes out at the end, the school district ends up paying a little less than half of that.
Well, on that, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we'll go over the rest of the ballot and the impact those issues might have in the shorter term. Stay with us.
Backstory is supported by Centralis Health, connecting our community with accessible, compassionate care that's built around you. From same-day appointments to long-term wellness support, Centralis Health helps you stay healthy and informed. Learn more at centralishealth.org.
This is Backstory. I'm Jimmy Jordan with my colleague Megan Zerez. Before the break, we've mostly focused on the capital project, but that's not the only decision voters have to make next Tuesday. Megan, tell me about the rest of the ballot.
Right. Okay. So for every school district, and I imagine maybe some people who are listening don't live in ICSD, but there are two main things that almost every single district decides every single year, and that is new school board members and the yearly operating budget. And again, the operating budget is sort of just that year's budget. It doesn't include big projects like this, renovations and construction.
This year's operating budget is $177.6 million. How does that compare to last year?
Yeah, so that's about a 5% increase, a little over 5%. And most of that, the district says, is driven by inflation and salary increases that are dictated by union contracts. And that's for everyone from teachers to teachers' aides, librarians, administrators, principals, school nurses, custodians, pretty much everybody. The district has said that they're, keeping the same staff numbers. They're trying to keep the same programs, just kind of keeping operations level, no changes year to year.
So the operating budget is also the thing that sets the amount of money that the district will raise through property taxes.
Right, the tax levy.
The tax levy.
Yeah.
I love a tax levy. And thus what the district's base will pay in property taxes. Does the capital project, those renovations, does that impact the property tax, the property tax rate at all?
I mean, it's a little complicated. School district leaders would say not directly, because the capital project, again, those are bond funded. So like the U.S. Treasury issues treasury bonds, and you or I could just go and buy treasury bonds. You or I could also go buy bonds issued by the Ithaca City School District if we wanted. It's like a loan. Again, they have to repay those bonds with interest, but that happens over many years. Still, debt service payments, repaying that money, that is definitely a not insignificant part of the operating budget every year. This year, it's about 7% of the total budget. And, that did go up this year compared to last year.
Gotcha. So voters will also elect new school board members. There are 3 seats up for grabs and 4 candidates. Tell me about these people.
So 2 of them are incumbents, Madeline Cardona and Garrick Blaylock. There is a newcomer, Sarah Garner. I have seen her attend a lot of the recent school board meetings, so that's good. That's brownie points for her. She's the director of a early childhood care program in Ithaca. And the 4th candidate, Jill Tripp, she's kind of interesting.
She used to serve on the board, right?
Yeah. She got voted off last year, but she's back to run again. She has been a bit of a budget hawk. She's, very famously has said, if you think they're spending too much and you want to start cutting down on that spending, you should vote for me. So she's very upfront about that. The teachers union passed over her for their endorsement last year, and the teachers union endorsement has a lot of sway in these school board elections.
Yeah, it definitely carries a lot of weight. But she's got the teachers union endorsement this year.
Yeah, that's right.
So does Garner and Blaylock and Cardona, who had it last year, lost the endorsement this time around.
Yeah, so last year, the teachers union decided to endorse Madeline Cardona. She's really interesting. She's a single mom. She's Puerto Rican. She only has a high school degree. And she originally was elected to serve out the remaining year of a former board member who stepped off the board. She kind of came on. She's saying, I really want to represent families who are like me, who are working class, single parents, students of color, right? I want to bring some of that representation to the board. But, I think she's still getting her feet wet and trying to figure out how to be a board member. And, she hasn't been super vocal on the board. And that may be why she sort of got passed over for the endorsement from the teachers union.
I see.
But we don't know.
So if there are 2 incumbents seeking re-election for these 3 seats, that means 1 incumbent declined to serve, and he's a pretty big deal.
He is. So that is Sean Eversley Bradwell. He is
Dr. Sean Eversley Bradwell.
That is correct. Dr. Sean Eversley Bradwell. He's a professor at Ithaca College. He teaches education. He's been on the board the longest. I think by the time he comes off, I think it's going to be 18 years, I want to say. He has been the school board president for a long time because he is very experienced, very much as a shaper of discussion on this board. He's one of 2 Black school board members currently, too.
He's certainly a pillar in the community.
Absolutely.
And especially in ICSD.
Absolutely. I mean, that is undeniable. He didn't say why he's choosing to leave. He had been sort of hinting at it, but never really explicitly said, this is my last term, It's going to be really interesting to see who steps up.
Somebody will.
Absolutely.
It's a position and somebody else will step in there.
Yeah.
Okay. There are a total of 4 items on the ballot plus school board candidates. Besides the operating budget and the capital projects, what are the other 2 items?
Right. So one of them is a purchase for a number of school buses. School buses are expensive, so it's true.
News
I don't know
to
how
me.
many of you tried to buy. These big purchases need to be passed by referendums. And then the other item is the establishment of a new capital fund. So as I understand, it's kind of like a bank account, I believe, in connection with the capital project that people are going to pass or not pass. And it's sort of a ride-along thing.
Well, Megan, thank you for giving us a preview. This is a deep dive into school district matters.
It really is.
Yeah.
I hope people think it's interesting because school board elections are some of the least well participated in elections, but they really do have a big impact on, at least in Ithaca, housing costs here because it has a big influence on property taxes. So hopefully people go out and vote.
Right. Absolutely. And what are the details on this election?
Pretty much every school district in this region is going to vote on May 19th. There is only one day to vote. Within ICSD, the polls are open from noon to 9 p.m. Your polling site is going to vary based on where you live. You can look up where you vote on ICSD's website. If you're registered to vote in a regular election, you can vote in a school board election too. The voter registration deadline passed on May 5th, but I believe you can still vote affidavit on the day of. If you're not sure what school district you live in, now's a great time to find out. Everyone in New York State lives in a school district. See what's on your ballot, see where you're supposed to vote, and then go do it.
Go do it. We'll be right back with the headlines after a short break.
Independent journalism isn't guaranteed. It's built. Join the readers who power the Ithaca Voice and make a gift today at ithacavoice.org.
Here's some other stories you may have missed. An immigrant dairy worker in Cayuga County was arrested by what appeared to be federal agents Friday morning. The young man, originally from Guatemala, lived and worked near King Ferry. His is at least the third such arrest the tiny hamlet has seen in less than 2 months. And an accident out in Newfield. A woman was driving late Thursday night when she saw a dead or injured cat on the road. When she stopped her car to check on the cat, another driver hit her. The woman was airlifted to Upstate Medical Center, no word yet on her condition. And the guy who founded the Ithaca Voice way back in 2014, obviously his claim to fame, won a Pulitzer. Jeff Stein, formerly of the Washington Post and the Ithaca Voice, was part of a team that won the Pulitzer Prize for public service. He covered DOJ's cuts to the federal workforce. And maybe you saw the writing on the wall, but it is confirmed the Seneca Street garage is now closed for good. The building was 53 years old and was expected to last at most 50 years. The city may not have the funds to rebuild a new garage on the same site, and it's considering selling the parcel, crumbling garage, and all. And as always, you can find the full version of these stories and more at www.ithacavoice.org.
You've been listening to Backstory, the podcast powered by the newsroom of the Ithaca Voice. I'm Jimmy Jordan, managing editor. Ron Van Ormer is our executive director. Our photographer is Casey Martin. Senior reporter Megan Zerez edits and produces the show, and our other reporters are Fernando Figueroa and Haley Potter. That's it for this week. Thank you.
Good job.
Hot dog.